Alright, so this chapter is pretty crazy because we're like going 2 days into the future, meaning that there's a lot of things that are unaccounted for, because in the previous chapter we saw that like over 800 members of the American military were entering the Culling game, and seemingly we're going to take on Yuji, Megumi, Angel, and Takaba. And that's just minimum 800. It's very likely that other nations' militaries have entered the Culling game as well, but like I said, now we're going 2 days into the future, because in this chapter when Kenjaku is breaking through Tengen's barrier, it says that it's November 16th, 12 a.m. And I think the last time that we got an update on the time was in chapter 199 when we were coming to Megumi and Yuji in the hotel room with Angel. It said that it was November 14th. So, you know, like a day and a half, 2 days more or less have passed. And like I also said, whatever transpired between that group and the military has already kind of happened, or it's still in the process of happening, but other things are also confirmed to kind of have happened based off what Kenjaku is saying here. And I'll get into it, but let me just go over the beginning of this chapter real quick, because we see this conversation between Tsukumo and Tengen. And Tsukumo's here because before the Culling game started, when the whole group was together, Tengen asked them like, hey, I'm gonna need at least 2 of you to stay here and guard me, because he knew that Kenjaku was going to come and try to absorb him with Geto's cursed spirit manipulation, because, you know, him not being able to merge with Star Plasma Vessel means that he's going to evolve and become more of a cursed spirit than anything. So he's susceptible to that. And it was decided that Choso and Tsukumo were going to be the ones that stay back and protect him. So that's why Tsukumo is here talking to Tengen, and that's why Choso runs into Kenjaku later on. Hey, also guys, if you like my Jujutsu Kaisen content, please subscribe if you haven't already. It's fine if you don't want to, but if you just need a reminder, here you go. Thanks. But basically in this sequence, it's telling us what we already kind of knew, like why Tengen has to merge with the Star Plasma Vessel, because if he doesn't, then he's going to evolve due to his immortality curse technique and might destroy humanity because of that. Like he'll just become like so powerful and abstract and just lose his mind in the process, I guess. But also we're finding out that he is actually a she. Tengen was a woman, or should I say they, because Tengen says that they don't have a gender anymore because of the evolution they've gone under. But previously Tengen was a woman, which is a surprise, but also makes sense because we see that all of the previous Star Plasma Vessels were also women. But we're also finding out that Tsukumo was also previously a Star Plasma Vessel candidate, which is interesting, but I guess she just wasn't good enough, or as good as Riko was, or she just declined it because she realized that you essentially die when you merge with Tengen, because they essentially take over you and Tengen's personality becomes the dominant one, as we've seen. But there's more to that stuff in this chapter, but you know, if it's explored later on, we'll go into it. But it's basically just getting across that Tsukumo's not down with Tengen and their methods, but we'll go more into her because Kenjaku brings her up later on. But coming to Kenjaku, like I said, we see him breaking through the barrier. It's telling us that it's 2 days since the last update that we got, and he's confronting Choso here, and he's asking him, you know, like, where is Tengen? And Choso's like, that talking thumb doesn't want to see you. And then Kenjaku says something extremely interesting, because he says the Culling game has already served its purpose. The customary prelude to merging Japan's non-sorcerers has finished. So this is what I was talking about. This has happened in the last day and a half or whatever. Something that we haven't seen because, you know, they're skipping in time here. So what I'm pretty sure he means here is what Tengen was talking about in chapter 146, when he says that there are 10 colonies around Japan. They are connected by barriers that form a line that sends humans in Japan to the other side. Conveyance to the other side may sound exaggerated, but a curse fell on everyone in Japan for preparation for a merger. So I guess this has happened, which I guess means that all of the non-sorcerers in Japan are now merged with the barrier and are like curses themselves, because that's a big element of Kenjaku's plan here. He needs that foundation to be built so that when he eventually does get Tengen, which is why he's here to absorb him, then he can fuse them with all of the citizens of Japan that are within the barrier. But we'll get more into that because he goes more into it. But Choso's like, you know, what's he talking about? It's too soon. Are Yuji and the others all right? And it's like, yeah, we don't know. Probably, but everyone else isn't. And Kenjaku's like, if I take Tengen now, you lose. Japan and maybe the whole world are done for, and I'll show you one possible ending. And he creates like this Jujutsu movie theater somehow. And he says in Shibuya, Tsukumo pointed out that optimizing curse energy through Tengen means people become sorcerers. She was basically saying that her version for correcting the world is making everyone into a sorcerer, essentially. Because that's the only other option aside from just killing everyone who isn't a sorcerer. If she can have everyone learn to control their cursed energy, then there will essentially be no curses anymore, or very little curses. Because the cursed energy in normal people like seeps out, and that's what creates curses. But sorcerers don't have that same kind kind of aspect to their cursed energy. It's more reserved. Like, so little seeps out that essentially no curses are formed from it. They more so just utilize cursed energy than anything. So if everyone were to have the same thing, then there would basically be no curse anymore, aside from the way that curses are formed when a sorcerer is killed through non-jujutsu, which definitely would still be a thing. Like, it would happen literally every single day, like, you know, murders or whatnot. So, you know, there would still be curses, I guess, but just not as many. But Kenjaku doesn't want that. He wants there to be curses and sorcerers. And he says, you know, I've always considered the possibilities of that. The new form of cursed energy may be attained by raising cursed spirits to the next level. An evolved Tengen is more cursed spirit than human, so merging Tengen with non-sorcerers in Japan means 100 million people becoming cursed spirits with cursed energy, and possibly a distillation process like an Uzumaki. I wonder what form that would take. And then we see this crazy big curse god thing that's like rivaling the size of a city. Yeah, like I said, this thing is what Kenjaku ultimately wants here, or one of the big things that he ultimately wants. And like I said earlier, he's essentially fused every non-sorcerer in Japan into the barrier, where they like became curses essentially. So like 100 million people more or less. And then afterwards he plans on taking Tengen, and then he's going to fuse Tengen with all of the people in the barrier, and then do the Uzumaki as a distillation process. The Uzumaki being the maximum technique of Geto's cursed spirit manipulation, where it basically fuses together all of the curses that they've absorbed. And then this would be the end result. It would be like this massive cursed god creature thing. And I guess this also goes back to Kenjaku saying that this would be a new form of cursed energy, essentially, I guess, right? I mean, Tengen with 100 million little cursed spirit batteries in him. But then it also goes back to what he said in chapter 36, where he said he essentially wants to create chaos that not even he can control, and this is certainly that. Now, I don't know if he necessarily wants this to just end the world, or if he just wants to see what would happen, because I don't think he also wants to kill all of the sorcerers. Like, maybe he wants the sorcerers to fight against this thing. I thought that he ultimately wanted everyone to fight against Sukuna, but maybe he wants them all to fight against this along with Sukuna, and maybe even Gojo too, or just the whole world to fight against this thing, and then just winner takes all. And then if the sorcerers can evolve in the process, then it's like win-win for him. There's still a lot of vagueness to what Kenjaku really wants. I mean, this is the core of it, as he says to Choso, because Choso's like, you know, what do you want? He's like, did I not just tell you? And he's like, no, I mean, what's in it for you? Why are you doing this? And he's like, it just sounds fun. And it's like, I guess this is, for the most part, what Kenjaku wants. He's just kind of like some mad scientist, I guess, that just wants to see what happens if he creates this curse god thing. I'm assuming there's more to it. There has to be more to it. It can't just be chaos for the sake of chaos. Why not? Because he's also, you know, what if that conglomeration of cursed energy ends up looking like a funny face, like one of the blacksmiths from Demon Slayer? He's like, wouldn't that be hilarious? And then Choso, you know, winds up using a piercing blood on him, but that's where the chapter ends. So yeah, super interesting stuff here. And I assume that the big cursed god thing will come to fruition, maybe, unless Gege kind of just put it here to show us what could be, and maybe it's going to fail, and that's when Sukuna takes over the plan, possibly. I do think Sukuna is going to be a big element here. Like, he's not ultimately going to be 100% on board with what Kenjaku wants. Like, I do think they are at odds. I think they're just working together for their own mutual ends here, but I think they will conflict eventually. But let me know what you think about this chapter in the comments, guys, and if you liked the review, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.